think there's a new Resident Evil game out. Looks alright. All this excitement might just have sparked your interest in exploring the series' low-resolution roots by playing its very first entry, released back in 1996. That was about 15 years ago, yeah? I've watched a few people lose their Resident Evil virginity, and they often seem to go into the game with a misconception of how hard it actually is. Funnily enough, this leads to them making decisions that end up making the game more difficult. A Resident Evil expert, I am not. But I love this game and I've dumped a canny few hours into it over the years. So today I want to share with you 10 spoiler-free tips to help you along as you enter into the world of survival horror. Number 1. Version choice matters. I'm not familiar with the GOG release of Resident Evil, so I can't really comment on that particular version. But if you're planning on playing the game on the PlayStation 1, I highly recommend the non-DualShock Director's Cut release. This restores auto-aim for Western audiences, making combat far more manageable, as well as retaining the canonical soundtrack that contains nary a whiff of the clown farts that you'd find in the DualShock version. Number 2. Play as Jill. Chris Redfield's rugged manliness is hard to resist, and with the game defaulting to his ID card on the character select screen, you may think that his scenario is the one that you need to play first. But Chris is essentially the game's hard mode. In fact, the Japanese version outright labels his mode as such, which is why I think it's best to choose Jill for your first playthrough. Now, I wouldn't say her scenario is super easy, especially with her having a lot less health than Chris, but her higher item capacity, wider arsenal, and the fact that she's
the master of unlocking
makes traversing the mansion far less of a chew. Playing as Jill is going to allow you to familiarise yourself with the mansion, its inhabitants, and its puzzles, so that when you do decide to take Chris for a ride, you're not going to get quite as lost. Number 3. Bin the knife. I've seen so many people use the knife as a way to conserve ammo, but knife stands, cover your ears. The knife is absolutely shit, and serves almost no purpose in the game. What it saves you in ammo, you'll inevitably lose in health, because zombies take so little damage and knockback from it that they'll quickly close in on you for a cheeky nibble. If you follow my other tips, you shouldn't be starved of ammunition. So take that knife and shove it in the item box at the earliest opportunity. This thing will get you killed. Number 4. Clear your corridors. The Spencer Mansion isn't short of tight and winding corridors, many of which are filled with at least one zombie. You'll be traversing a good few of these paths multiple times, so clearing out any enemies along the way is ammo well spent. If you try to dodge and weave around your foes like some kind of basketball person, you're gonna get bitten, especially if you're not a fan of tank controls. Number 5. Kill it until it's dead. Unless an enemy is dead, like properly dead, they'll regain any lost health once you leave and re-enter the room, meaning any ammo you've pumped into them is essentially wasted. So if you've started shooting something, make sure you keep shooting it until it's dead. Zombies often fall down and play dead, ready for a munch on your ankles if you're not careful. And there are a few ways to tell whether this is the case. First is the obvious pool of blood that forms underneath them that tells you that they've expired for good. But it's not always easy to see this depending on the angle or the environment. If you're using auto-aim, which you should be, you can turn away and hold the aim button while near a seemingly dead zombie. If you spin around to face it, the zombie isn't dead. A slightly lesser known method is to back away. If your character looks defensive or cautious, you've got a live one nearby. Number 6. Don't be afraid of the shotgun. The Beretta is useful in the early stages of the game, but if clearing zombies efficiently is your goal, then the shotgun really is the way to go. The amount of shotgun shells may be less plentiful, but using them to pop every zombie's head makes far better use of the ammo available. Shells come in boxes of 7, meaning that you can take out 7 zombies with a single box. The same can't be said for a handgun clip. Now that's not to say you should neglect the handgun and its ammo altogether, as they are useful for certain enemies, just don't be afraid to use a more powerful weapon when the need arises. Number 7. Mix green herbs. Mixing a red and green herb together results in a delicious full heal, but there are a lot more green herbs than red herbs available in the game itself. So while it's good practice to pick up a red herb if you can, don't squirrel away a single greenie just for a red one that might never come. Mixing 3 greens together results in a full heal, and you'd be surprised how many of these you'll come across on your journey. If you're uncomfortable mixing 3 greens, you can always mix 2 and save 1 for later. Number 8. Keep 2 to 3 ink ribbons in reserve. I'm not sure how the GOG version of Resident Evil works, but back in my day, we used ink ribbons to save our game, and they were in short supply. Or were they? Much like ammo, ink ribbons are fairly abundant, and as long as you're making prudent use of them, you shouldn't run out. Many people blaze through their ink ribbons during their initial exploration of the mansion at the start of the game, making a lot of saves for little progress. Aiming to keep 2 to 3 ribbons in reserve should help curb your craving for saving. I recommend saving only after you've cleared a puzzle or beaten a boss. In between these events, you won't lose as much progress as you'd think if you took a death. Think of it this way: if you've been roaming the mansion for 30 minutes but only 5 of those actually resulted in some progress, then you've really only lost 5 minutes, rather than 30. Number 9. Keep 1 to 2 item slots free. Picking things up can feel like you're making progress, especially when it's a key item or a new weapon. But the prompt that comes up asking whether you want to take an item is there for a reason. Once something's in your inventory, the only way to get rid is to use it or dump it in the stash. Items stay where they are if you don't pick them up. So if you don't know what to do with something and you're not close to an item box, take some time to consider whether picking it up is the right thing to do at that moment. There's nothing more soul-destroying than having to burn through a healing item or some ammo in order to make room for something that you actually need. I've seen a lot of people take 3 weapons and their respective ammo on their adventures, leaving little room for healing and key items. Try to stick to a maximum of 2 weapons. One for standard affairs, and another more powerful one for those emergency situations. Number 10. Check everything. Twice. Resident Evil has a lot of supplies waiting to be picked up. Some are tucked away in nooks and crannies, just tempting enough to explore. Others may be items that are no longer needed by the previous owner. If there's anything of interest, it's always worth checking it at least twice, just to see if there's a heal, ammo, or an ink ribbon ready for collection. And that's it for my 10 tips for Resident Evil 1. If you keep them in mind, you'll still probably die a few times, but it'll at least be for a good reason. Now these tips aren't infallible, but they're things that I fall back on whenever I'm feeling a bit rusty. But above all else, I want you to have fun. Resident Evil 1 is such an iconic and timeless game, and there's so much to discover and enjoy. If you've played the game, what spoiler-free tips would you add to this list? Pop them down in the comments, and until next time, take care and goodbye.